You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, May 5th, 2020, Cinco de Mayo. Getting into the week here, all kinds of stuff to talk about. And remember, the new rules are in place, so we're not taking phone calls the first hour. We'll take phone calls in the second hour. It worked out very well yesterday. Got a lot of positive email from people saying they like the new format. So anyway, it's Cinco de Mayo, as I mentioned before. It's also the anniversary of Alan Shepard's suborbital flight, the first American in space. Sadly, not the first man in space. That goes to Yuri Gagarin in the Soviet Union. And before I get into the news here, I wanted to make a comment. We had a lot of phone calls yesterday dealing with the idea of war. And, we've got to go to war here and we've got to go to war there. No, war's bad. We all know war is bad. We've studied history. We've seen the photos. We know war is bad. Why do we keep getting suckered into it? And I made a point of putting up Mark Twain's The War Prayer, which is one of his most powerful works. Now, remember, Mark Twain himself experienced war. He joined a militia during the Civil War and wound up deserting, which is why he wound up going out west to San Francisco and launching his writing career. So we all know war is bad. Why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep letting ourselves get talked into surrendering our money and our children's lives for wars that really, as Smedley Butler said, it's all a racket. It's all a racket. It's to make the rich people richer. It's to make the bankers happy. That's why I wrote that article, All Wars Are Bankers' Wars. Because ultimately all wars are about grabbing somebody else's wealth and making it yours without sharing it to the people who do the actual work. Yeah, you may get a little tiny medal. Well, these days they're not metal anymore, they're plastic. And it's a racket, and we shouldn't be doing it. All righty, so getting on into our news. President Trump is saying that Joe Biden botched his denial of Tara Reade's sex assault claim, as his choice of words weren't very good. And Trump said, his choice of words weren't very good when he, dismissed the allegation. This was during an interview with the New York Post in the Oval Office. And Biden, he's not a very good extemporaneous speaker these days. And I think it's another sign of his impending dementia. And I really think the Democrats have painted themselves into a corner. They can't run with Biden. They can't win with him. Anybody else they could have won with, they got rid of as being undesirable, like Tulsi Gabbard or Bernie Sanders. Now, we were talking yesterday about how Hillary Clinton is sending signals that she's ready to step in if Biden steps down. Well, frankly, I think if Biden steps down, the nomination should go to the guy who came in second place, which would be Bernie Sanders. I'd like to see Bernie Sanders in there. Although, to be honest, I'd like to see anybody in there other than Hillary Clinton. Oh, anyway. Now, the Secretary of the Senate is denying calls to disclose information about the complaint against Biden. Right now, we're getting into yet another mistake that is being made, where Biden came on out and said, yes, we can, have the National Archives release certain reports. And the Secretary of the Senate says she's forbidden by law from disclosing any records potentially relating to a sexual assault allegation against presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden. And again, they're handling this so badly. They're keeping the scandal alive by the way they're handling it. And I don't know who's advising them on this. They're not doing a very, very good job. Meanwhile, the Democrats as a whole are all tied up in knots and, trying to basically get around this problem that back when it was Kavanaugh that was under examination, they were out there saying, well, the women must be believed. Believe the women. Don't need evidence. Just believe the women when they say what happened. Well, now they've got the same situation. And now all of a sudden it's about, no. We have to have proof here. We have to have proof beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a just society. And we don't convict on acclamation only. like they tried to do on Kavanaugh. So it's fascinating to watch the Democrats, running around in circles and wringing their hands and tearing their hair out, trying to protect Joe Biden without looking like total hypocrites doing it. All right, House Republicans have sent a letter to FBI Director Wray demanding all documents on the operation against Michael Flynn. They also want to interview Bill Priestap and Joe Pientka, I believe that's pronounced. And this is another scandal that's coming on out. Now, we still have not heard word from the judge in the case whether the charges will be dismissed or not. Trump has already indicated he'll do a pardon if that doesn't happen. But obviously for Flynn and for the American people, it would be better if he was exonerated. And frankly, this is the biggest FBI scandal, in my opinion, since COINTELPRO. And it's a reminder to the American people, the FBI are not the good guys. They really are not the good guys. They're the American version of the Gestapo. They're there to get things done for whoever's in power. Okay, so getting on into coronavirus, and this is a little indirect, but they're talking about the meat shortages. Remember the other day I said there's something wrong here. They're talking about, euthanizing livestock, burying perfectly good produce, plowing it back into the fields, and yet the food banks are saying we can't get anything. I said it just doesn't make sense, and it felt to me like somebody was deliberately creating food shortages. Well, now it's hitting the meat sector. Now, a big part of it, of course, are all these meat processing plants that have shut down because of COVID-19. But Costco and Kroger are warning of a limited supply and saying they're going to start limiting how much you can. Now, a big part of the problem, though, are hoarders. Because a lot of people who were able to get those chest freezers, they're now hoarding and stocking up, which I really can't argue against. The more prepared you are, the better you will survive, is what it comes down to. So Costco said it will be limiting customers to just 3 packages of meat per shopper. Kroger supermarkets posted an alert on the meat section saying it may have limited inventory due to high demand. Now, grocers have been bracing for a run on meat in mid-May as major meat processing plants, including Tyson Foods, have been forced to shut down production. But the shortages appear to have come earlier than expected because of the hoarding. 1 in 5 Wendy's is out of beef, and they have taken beef products off of their menu. Still a lot of chicken products up there. And it's really kind of funny because if you remember when Wendy's first launched, they had a very popular, very famous commercial of this old lady going, "Where's the beef?" And they talked about how their beef was fresh and never frozen, but Wendy's restaurants are out of beef. So where is the beef? And those hamburgers with the square patties, that's their signature item. And they're good. I like Wendy's. Go to the Wendy's on Oahu all the time. So Costco is limiting the number of beef, poultry, and pork products customers can buy, and meat supplies are on track to hit historic lows. As a result, of course, prices are exploding upward. And people are starting to say, where can we make sure we're going to have an adequate supply? What are they doing? Well, they're turning to hunting. Americans are turning to hunting game amidst the pandemic food shortage fears. Now, there's going to be a problem there because hunting is very much controlled in this country, and you have to have the appropriate tags or risk arrest and fine if you take an animal without having the tag to put on them. Like deer. A lot of deer around here. We're not allowed to hunt them in this part of the neighborhood, of course. But yeah, I mean, we actually saw that on Hawaii when things started to tighten up there. When we first moved to Hawaii, which was 20 years ago, there were wild chickens everywhere. See, when the whalers had gone out to Hawaii, they had made presents of chickens to the Hawaii royalty, but never got around to explaining these were supposed to be food animals. So the royalty kept them as pets. and they have continued to procreate down through the ages, and they're all over the island, or they were. As the economy began to tighten up, all of a sudden the chickens began to disappear. Still a lot of cats there. Okay, now then, more than 370 workers at a pork plant in Missouri tested positive for COVID-19. All were asymptomatic. They didn't show any symptoms that they had the illness. And that's getting to be a real problem, that people can have this illness and not even realize it. So 373 employees and contract workers at Triumph Foods in Buchanan County, Missouri, have tested positive. All were asymptomatic. The state of Missouri has reported 8,386 cases and 352 deaths statewide as of Sunday night. So Triumph, which is a pork processing plant, is located in St. Joseph's on the border of Missouri and Kansas. Up in Canada, in Alberta, 936 workers at a single meat plant tested positive for coronavirus. One has died. So right now, the race is on to find or create a vaccine that will be made mandatory for coronavirus. So there's big money there. And everybody wants it to be their vaccine. They're not looking for a vaccine. They're looking for our vaccine, because we don't want to have to pay money to some foreign country. And that really skews the research. They're trying to come up with a new product rather than an actual solution. So follow the money. That's going to tell you where things are going here. Now, a Trump-appointed federal judge has dismissed a COVID-19 pandemic face mask lawsuit, but not because the orders are constitutional. See, there's been a big issue. Can the president or anybody under our Constitution order you to wear face masks and order you to maintain social distancing, or order you to stay in your house? And a lot of people are saying, no, it's really not constitutional to do so. It's a good suggestion, but people have the option of deciding for themselves what they're going to do. But this judge, Scott L. Pauk, dismissed a case that was brought against the United States government, not on the lack of merit of constitutional grounds, but because the plaintiffs did not have standing to sue. The plaintiffs had never been arrested, prosecuted, or threatened with prosecution for not obeying the face mask or lockdown orders in Guthrie, Oklahoma. So it's a bit of a legal mess out there. Hundreds of furious protesters descend upon the Massachusetts State House to demand the end of coronavirus lockdowns as organizers compare lousy COVID-19 to the seasonal flu. Apparently they were out there yesterday waving American flags and signs saying liberty or death. So that's okay. I have to be very concerned about the people who are showing up at these protests with nooses and Confederate flags and more provocative things, because the concern that we have seen the government try and poison protests by putting in some very disreputable people. And I think this next story is more of the same thing here. This came from stationgossip.com. And apparently there was this 53-year-old man who was helping to plan armed protests against social distancing in Colorado, was arrested by the FBI for 4 pipe bombs found in his home last Friday. Okay, now obviously somebody taking pipe bombs to these protests is going to make the protests look very, very bad. But frankly, this is feeling like another one of these classic FBI setups, where an informant gets close to this guy and says, you know, look, nobody's paying attention to you. We got to blow something up. Here are 4 pipe bombs. And then the FBI swoops in, they make the arrest, they get the headlines, it makes the protesters look bad. And the question for me would be, well, how did they know there were 4 pipe bombs in the home? I mean, if you're making a pipe bomb, it's not exactly something you brag about on Facebook. Hi there, Facebook fans, I'm making pipe bombs in my garage. So I question that one. I really, really do. Over in war-torn Yemen, they're facing 16 million coronavirus cases, according to the United Nations. And this is dealing a blow to what is already described as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The most likely scenario, according to the UN's Lisa Grand, would see COVID-19 strike 55% of Yemen's entire population. Now, Taiwan is rebuffing the World Health Organization, saying that China has no right to represent them before the body. Taiwan's democratically elected government, only they can represent the people on the world stage, not China, its foreign ministry said on earlier, calling on the World Health Organization to cast off China's control during the pandemic. Now, here's a little bit of good news. As we mentioned before, it appeared that the coronavirus protein spikes were similar, if not identical, to those on HIV. So they've come up with this experimental antibody that targets the spike protein. Now, the spike protein is the means by which the coronavirus attaches to a healthy cell and then infects it. And if they can get that spike protein to quit working, then the coronavirus can't implant itself and reproduce. So apparently this antibody was developed by researchers at Utrecht University in the Netherlands, and it can defeat coronavirus in a laboratory setting. This was a study published in Nature Communications. Bloomberg, which notes that the antibody known as 47D11 neutralized the virus in cell cultures. So there's a possible cure right there. Except that nobody wants a cure. They want treatments, they want vaccines that go on and on forever, generating revenue. All right, out in California, people are starting to stand up for their rights. Human beings were never meant to be caged by a few elitists, and people are getting sick of their enslavement to the political overlords. So protests raged all over the United States over the weekend. Millions of people begged the very government that enslaved them to free them. Obviously, that's not how it works. But the fact that they are realizing no other human has a higher claim over them is at least a step in the right direction. You can only push people so far, and people have finally grown tired of obeying the commands of the ruling class, and they have taken to disobeying orders to imprison themselves in their homes so they won't spread a virus that, even by the government's exaggerated numbers, is still no worse than the flu. And by the way, the total number of coronavirus deaths at the CDC website has been cut in half. And the CDC is now admitting that a lot of those deaths initially attributed to COVID-19 were the ordinary seasonal flu. Everybody was playing politics with this. A New York City police officer was caught on video Saturday pointing a stun gun at a man and violently taking him to the ground over an alleged social distancing violation. He's been stripped of his gun and badge and placed on desk duty pending an internal investigation. Bystander video showed the plainclothes officer, who was not wearing a protective face mask, slapping 33-year-old Donnie Wright in the face, punching him in the shoulder, and dragging him to a sidewalk after leveling him in a crosswalk in Manhattan's East Village. And Mayor Bill de Blasio said, "The behavior I saw in that video is simply not acceptable, and there will be an investigation." Okay, now police spokeswoman Sergeant Mary Frances O'Donnell said Wright took a fighting stance against the officer when he was ordered to disperse and was arrested on charges including assault on a police officer and resisting arrest. Now, what exactly is a fighting stance? I mean, I understand from martial arts there are certain postures and whatnot, but it's very fuzzy and very gray. He could just be standing there, you know, with his legs apart, and the officer could say, "Oh, that's a fighting stance. I can now arrest you." Now, a real big question, to which you probably already know the answer, this is coming out of Blacklisted News, is COVID-19 forcing deglobalization? Well, it certainly has created a very powerful argument for deglobalization on two issues. First of all, the ease with which COVID-19 spread all across the globe, and how quickly these global supply chains for supplies fell apart. How fragile this whole global system is. Nations that weren't able to provide protective equipment for themselves are in serious trouble as these supply chains dry up. I think it's a very strong argument for deglobalization. I've been against globalization all along. So we're going to take a break here for some commercials, and we'll be back after these few words.
Republic Broadcasting Network, we have been building our online store. Well, we have been focusing on bringing you the best talk show host in the country. Here at Republic Broadcasting Network, we also want our listeners to have products they can use every day and in times of emergency. We have added new products each week to our store. Your support of this network, plus products at the best prices, is a win-win situation. Check out our new store. Go to our website, republicbroadcasting.org, and click on the online store located at the top of our website. Together, we can continue to grow RBN and help our listeners prepare for the future. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and click on our online store or call us
800-724-2719 extension 3. 800-724-2719 extension 3.
As a listener of RBN, you're surely concerned about being informed and being ready for whatever may come. Please consider the following questionnaire as a soul-jarring wake-up call. If you answer no to more than 2 of these following questions, you probably aren't going to make it through any major disruption in our country. The questions were compiled by people that have been there. Are you really ready? Do you own your own firearm for the primary defense and protection of you and your loved ones? Have you ever been professionally trained to stand against life-threatening behavior? Have you ever practiced enough to fire 500 rounds during a 2 to 4 day time frame, day and night? Can you load, unload, fire, and clear a jam in total darkness? Have all the adults in your household been professionally trained? Are you, life and death, comfortable with your abilities with pistol, revolver, shotgun, and rifle? Are you aware that everything that you do to prepare for an emergency is a waste of time, money, and energy? If you haven't honed your abilities to their highest level to protect and keep what you have, do you have the repair parts that will most likely be needed for each of your firearm, and do you have the ability to install those parts? Could you completely clean every firearm you own? Are you aware that your body won't go where your mind hasn't been? In other words, without proper training, followed by regular practice, you probably will not win a gunfight. Well, how did you measure up? Take the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start correcting your deficiencies by receiving your Commander Lifetime Membership with Front Sight Firearms Training Facility. A one-time donation to RBN for $500 will give you a Commander Lifetime Membership at Front Sight as a tremendously huge thank you bonus. See details on RBN's webpage to make it happen. The clock is ticking. You had better be ready before it happens.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
Okay, and a reminder that under the new format, the phone lines are not open until the top of the hour. So we have to move this particular bump, I think, into hour number 2. Okay, will international travel resume this year? Treasury Secretary Mnuchin is saying it's too hard to tell. I think it's going to be a very long, slow recovery from this economic lockdown. And everyone's talking about we're reopening for business, we're restarting the economy. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be over the week. It's not going to be over the month. It's going to be many, many months before we're back to anything approaching normal. And we keep hearing this phrase about the new normal, where the new normal is going to be we're still separated, and we're still dealing with plastic screens, and we're still dealing with face masks. And I don't think this economy is going to be back on its feet for a very, very long time to come. And that includes travel. Now, I know that some of the cruise lines are getting ready to reopen. They've sanitized their ships, and they're hoping that things are going to be working there. But I imagine there's some very sweet deals to be had for those of you who like blue water ocean cruising. As far as air miles, right now, a lot of airlines are storing surplus hardware, if you will, down in the Australian outback, which is very, very dry and very, very warm and prevents the aircraft from corroding. So there's a lot of aircraft down there by Alice Springs, and it may be down there for a long while. I don't think we're going to see the volume of air traffic come back anytime soon. So Mnuchin is out there saying, obviously, for business people that do need to travel, there'll be travel on a limited basis. But recreational air travel, tourism air travel may be down for quite a long time here. Okay, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Meng are pushing for a $66 billion per month universal rent moratorium in the next coronavirus stimulus. And they want to bankroll a moratorium on rent and mortgage payments, an unprecedented proposal that carries a monthly price tag of at least $66 billion. Sounds to me like emerging socialism. Let's get people back to work. And yes, these renters do need help. I mean, if you look at how many people are in trouble, whether it's their rent, their mortgage, their credit cards, it shows you how thin the edges we've all been operating on. Now, I remember when I was a kid, everybody had savings, or pretty much everybody had savings that would last for a few months if you got into trouble. Not anymore. I mean, in the grander scale of things, this economic shutdown has been relatively short, and yet look at the damage it did. I think it indicates that our country was seriously in trouble even before the coronavirus came along here. All right, we have been talking over the last couple of weeks about how censorship has come to social media. And the newest justification for it, of course, is bad information about COVID-19. You know, if you're espousing a point of view that is different from the official, sanctioned explanation, you can be banned. And as the COVID-19 crisis progresses, censorship program increases, and there literally calls for China-style control of the internet. Now, Atlantic Magazine ran an in-depth article of the problems free speech poses to American society. You think about that for a while. According to the Atlantic, free speech is a problem. That tells you the direction they're thinking about going. They want to take away the First Amendment. The Atlantic Magazine went on saying, internet speech will never go back to normal. China was largely correct and the US was wrong. Now, David Icke has been banned. And that was wrong to do. And it strengthens his case that we're sleepwalking towards dictatorship. The whole point of freedom of speech is everybody gets their say. And then if you don't agree with what they're saying, you get to come up with a counter argument. You have a thesis, the original idea. You have the antithesis, the opposite point of view. And out of the two comes synthesis and a whole new idea. That's how information and knowledge progresses. But once you get into this idea of saying, this is the approved version of science or history or politics, and no other point of view is allowed, then you've lost your freedom of speech. There's permitted speech and not permitted speech. And we're right there in 1984, as Orwell warned us. And that's what the book 1984 was, a warning. Not an instruction manual, it was a warning. So Icke has been accused of preaching hate and peddling unsubstantiated conspiracy theories. Well, how do you substantiate a conspiracy theory? Certainly the people the conspiracy is about aren't going to substantiate it. I think the Boston bombing, was a setup. We expect the government to say, yep, gee shuckies, you caught us. Kansas City is forcing businesses and churches to keep lists of visitors for COVID-19 tracking. That's the new buzzword, contact tracking, which is proving to be very, very difficult with asymptomatic patients here. Now, I don't know about the church where you are, but my wife's church, they keep lists. Oh, my goodness, we have to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Is the Second Amendment your line in the sand? Is the United States Constitution important to you? Are you worried about gun confiscation? You need to join us for free at gunconfiscation.com. At gunconfiscation.com, you will meet like-minded patriots, get the latest Second Amendment news, and find anything you need to prepare for gun confiscation. Visit gunconfiscation.com today. That's gunconfiscation.com. Which side are you on?
Talk Right, the conservative app offered by TalkStream Live that caters exclusively to the conservative talk radio community. Here you'll see only talk shows and podcasts from the conservative right, all the big broadcast names and online digital shows in one place. Talk Right makes it easy to find all your favorite conservative talkers with all the upscale features you come to expect from TalkStream Live. Keep up with the fast-paced political world. Download Talk Right today from Google Play or the App Store.
Hey, honey, I'm home. I grabbed a newspaper on the way home. Look at all the news today.
Don't you know that all you're going to get in the newspaper is propaganda, twisted news, and false information?
Honey, this is a national newspaper. It has to be true.
Ha! For some reason, the majority of the population believe anything the mainstream media tells them. The newspaper doesn't give out the important attention of what's happening to this country and news that affects our daily lives. Say, does that newspaper mention anything about the North American Union?
No, not that I can see.
I didn't think so. You need to go to www.newswithviews.com, where truth is more important than political correctness. That's www.newswithviews.com. Hey, don't throw that away. We can use that in the birdcage.
Okay, move over. Let me start reading newswithviews.com.
The truth? Read all about it at newswithviews.com. Newswithviews.com, where reality shatters illusion.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what really happened?
Welcome back to our show here. We were talking about how Kansas City is forcing businesses and churches to keep lists of visitors. Now, right now, the mayor, Quinton Lucas, is relaxing some of the provisions of the previous lockdown orders, and the new order allows non-essential businesses to reopen, but they must limit the number of customers to no more than 10 persons or 10% of the building occupancy, whichever number is greater. And part of the requirements are that businesses and churches have to maintain lists of people who enter their doors. Now, for the churches, I think that's going to be easy, at least to judge by the church that Claire goes to. Because when you go to that church, there's a little book on the pew that you sign your name on. Of course, that's also a really good way to pass around the COVID-19 virus. But I guess they didn't think about that. All righty. Now, studying Apple data is showing that the effectiveness of the lockdowns is in decline. And whether government wants it to or not, people are finally saying enough of this stuff. And they're defying the state and going on out there. Apple has released data that shows people have made up their minds and are refusing to comply with orders any longer. Just this will show that people have always had this power. They just didn't know it. It's rather alarming how revolutionary the talk is getting. But we really have been pushed to the edge. I'm pushed to the edge. You know, and Claire and I home office, it's not like we go out a lot anyway. It's the idea that now we're being told we can't go out. That rankles quite a bit. Oh. All righty, we're getting into the international news now, and the China bashing is continuing. The latest one is that the American power grid is vulnerable to Chinese cyber attacks. Why would they bother unless pushed? Now, Reuters is claiming that Beijing is already preparing for the prospect of an armed conflict with the U.S., and it's seemingly driven the deteriorating relationships between Washington and Beijing back to the limelight as far as the market is concerned. Now, this also opens up the possibility of a false flag where U.S. cyber warriors could take down the power grid and they could say, oh my goodness, it's China. Except, of course, with the power grid down, nobody would hear the propaganda, would they? Just something to think about here a little bit. The FBI is out there screaming that Russia is going to interfere in the 2020 elections. They still haven't proven that Russia had any interference in the 2016 elections. But we're supposed to just forget all about that and say, oh, those horrible Russians, they're interfering with our elections. Well, look at how often the United States interferes in other countries' elections. It's like a regular part of our foreign policy to go on in and rig elections and other, you know, it's part of what the CIA does. Have you noticed this double standard coming from the US government? It's okay for us to go in and rig other countries' elections because we stand for sweetness and kittens and flags and ice cream. But it's wrong for those other countries to interfere in elections because they stand for evilness and bad things and, you know, dust in the corners and kind of stuff. You know, if you back off and look at some of this stuff objectively, it really does get ridiculous. Okay, over in Israel, member of the Knesset, May Golan, Likud party, has submitted a bill calling for imposing Israel's sovereignty on the occupied territories of the Jordan Valley, the northern Dead Sea area, and the West Bank. Okay, with imposing sovereignty being polite speech for, we're going to steal that. We're going to steal that land. We're going to steal that land. This is Israel's idea of Middle East peace. We want a piece of that one. We want a piece of that one. We want a piece of that one. Now, according to Israel's Channel 7, Economy Minister and member of the Knesset, Eli Cohen, also joined the initiative and expressed his support. This bill is intended to rectify the existing situation and end all historical injustice. I have no doubt there's a broad consensus in all parts of the Knesset that supports the proposal and the time to implement it. So that's their idea, is that somehow the fact that the West Bank is not under their control is an historical injustice, forgetting, of course, that all of that land used to be Palestine. And bit by bit, it gets stolen. Now, this is one of the reasons why I'm very upset with Donald Trump. The U.S. has announced it is willing to recognize and support Israel's annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank shortly after Israel announced its illegal plan. And again, annexation is another word for steal. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to go ahead with controversial annexations. Analysts say takes Israel's illegal occupation of the West Bank a step further. The step was welcomed by the Trump administration, which has a track record for supporting Israel's illegal settlements and plans for annexation. So it's one of the many ways that Donald Trump is a disappointment here. Now, former national security officials are saying Democrats should oppose the occupation and settlement expansion in their platform for this election. More than 30 former national security officials have asked the DNC to use its 2020 platform to push for a fair solution to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. Apparently, there was a letter that was put out, obtained by Huffington Post. The officials said the party and its nominees should oppose unilateral Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territory. They said previous platforms have rightly committed to Israel's security, but didn't recognize Palestinian rights. I don't expect this year's platform will be any different. These platforms have, however, been nearly silent on the rights of Palestinians, on Israeli actions that undermine those rights, and the prospects for a two-state solution, and on the need for security for both people. Okay, a Russian publication reported this week that the Russian armed forces have deployed their resonance radar system in an area near the Israeli border. According to the NZIV publication, the Russian resonance radar was identified in 2 locations in the eastern Mediterranean region, including an area along the Israel-Egyptian border. Last year, the think tank and reputable military analysis source Global Security wrote, "The Egyptian resonance NE radar tracks the movement of all objects in the airspace, not only over Egypt, but also Israel and Syria. According to a number of sources, in 2020, Russia will begin regular deliveries of the Renaissance NE to the Middle East." There we are. Okay, the Congressional Watchdog, the Government Accountability Office, is saying that the U.S. Departments of State and Energy should commit to regular briefings to relevant committees in Congress on talks about nuclear power cooperation with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has indicated their desire to become a nuclear power. And of course, it's okay for them to become a nuclear power because they're the good guys along with us. But the Government Accountability said Congress should consider amending the 1954 Atomic Energy Act to require the briefings for the House Committee on Foreign Affairs and the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations about negotiations on nuclear power sharing. Okay, this one's a little bit alarming. I think we talked about it briefly yesterday. The U.S. Navy has sent 4 warships into Russia's Barents Sea. Note, that's Russia's Barents Sea for the first time since the Cold War, the mid-1980s. And the official explanation is that they're conducting maritime security operations. Okay, now just for a moment, imagine that Russia sends 4 warships into the Gulf of Mexico for maritime security operations. How would the U.S. react? They'd view it as a provocation. Now, the U.S. Navy confirmed that 3 destroyers and 1 support ship had been joined by the Royal Navy's HMS Kent in the mission. It said U.S. Navy surface ships had not operated in the Barents since the mid-1980s. Why are they there now, other than to annoy Russia? Okay, big news that came out this morning. Venezuela claims to have captured 2 Americans involved in a failed invasion. We talked about this naval invasion from Colombia yesterday, but apparently there's more information. Nicolas Maduro says 2 American mercenaries have been apprehended after a failed coup attempt launched over the weekend. Now, of course, Donald Trump has denied U.S. involvement in the incident. He said, I just got information on that, but it has nothing to do with our government. We have plausible deniability. So these 2 arrested U.S. mercenaries were playing Rambo. They're paraded after this failed attempt to kill Maduro, masterminded by a former Green Beret. And Maduro blamed it on America and Colombia. 8 of the attackers were dead. 2 survived, the Americans. Somebody botched up that operation really, really good. China's working on a supersonic stealth bomber. It could be ready later this year. This will make it the 3rd country alongside the U.S. and Russia capable of launching nuclear weapons from land, sea, or air. First 2 rules of war: don't invade China, don't invade Russia. Getting to our local political news here, Christopher Steele has testified in Great Britain, admitting to deep ties with the Clinton machine. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Christopher Steele wrote that famous, or rather infamous, dossier supposedly about Donald Trump carrying on with a couple of prostitutes in a Moscow hotel, none of which was ever documented or proven. And the dossier is basically considered a total work of fiction at this point. And all along they were saying, well, you know, he was just investigating and it's got nothing to do with the Hillary Clinton campaign. And now, of course, he's out there saying, yeah, of course I was working with the Clinton political machine. It was a hatchet job. Now, Judicial Watch has filed a lawsuit seeking records on Dr. Fauci and the World Health Organization, trying to figure out exactly what's going on with the Wuhan virus, in particular, U.S. funding for that laboratory. Just who was involved, where did the materials come from? Getting into the economic news, and the economy is not good. The stock market did okay. I think they ended about 160 points up. It's not on the screen right now. But what's the tipping point for when bankruptcies become systemic and failures create a domino effect of tripping other companies into insolvency? That's another aspect of too tightly integrating the economy. One part of it fails and everybody else gets in trouble. It's like when an automobile manufacturer has to shut down their factory, all the other little companies that provide parts, they get into trouble. Stretched too thin. All right, the U.S. Treasury seeks to borrow a record $3 trillion this quarter. Now, Billy, I have a question. This is the U.S. Treasury. And under the original Constitution, they basically control the money supply. Why don't they just create $3 trillion? Why does it have to be borrowed at interest from a privately owned central bank? So they're going to borrow this money in large part to subsidize economic rescue efforts in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. They're going to try and inflate away the problems. And that's always a bad, bad sign. Apparently, some of these stimulus checks, the $1,200 checks, have gone to foreign workers who are not even in the country any longer. Apparently, a lot of dead people got checks. Meanwhile, America's super rich see their wealth rise by $282 billion with a B in just 3 weeks of the pandemic. This is a report from the Institute for Policy Studies, which found that while tens of millions of Americans have lost their jobs during the pandemic, America's ultra-wealthy have seen their net worth surge by $282 billion in just 23 days. This is despite the fact the economy is expected to contract by 40% this quarter. 40%, that is huge. We're talking about a new depression. The report also noted that between 1980 and 2020, the tax obligations of America's billionaires, measured as a percentage of their wealth, decreased by 79%. In the last 30 years, U.S. billionaire wealth soared by over 1%, while median household wealth increased by barely 5%. The rich get richer, the poor get laid off. Now, Jeff Bezos is on course to be the world's first trillionaire as the coronavirus has boosted Amazon sales. One of the vice presidents of Amazon has quit, and basically over Amazon's firing of whistleblowers who were reporting on the poor conditions there. Now, this is a good story, this next one that comes on up. Okay, and it addresses something I mentioned a while back. Why aren't we taking all this food that is being destroyed, like milk, and getting it to the food banks? Well, Kroger purchased 200,000 gallons of milk from dairy farmers and basically redirected it to Feeding America food banks. So good for Kroger. Those are nice markets, by the way. Okay, a federal judge in California has ruled against this group, the Center for Medical Progress, who got videos of people at Planned Parenthood talking about how they were selling baby parts. And the judge ruled against them in a lawsuit and said they have to pay Planned Parenthood $1.2 million. I think that is a tremendous miscarriage of justice. I think pretty much everybody agrees that carving up aborted babies and selling the parts off is pretty icky. So, truth hurts. All right, do you remember the killer bees? Remember the big scare about killer bees? The killer bees are coming. There were movies and oh my goodness. Well, the newest one is the murder hornet. And this is a 2-inch long killer bug that has been discovered up in Washington State. Now, they're all over Asia. They are, in fact, deadly. They kill about 50 people every year, and they're quite lethal. And so now that's the new scare. The world's largest hornet, the murder hornet, and they prey on honeybees, as if the honeybees didn't have enough problems with GMO pollen. And they're trying to figure how they're going to wipe it out. Now, remember what happened with the killer bees. They interbred with the milder, more domestic bees, and their killer instincts sort of went away. Now, I don't know what these hornets are going to interbreed with, but the same thing could definitely happen with them. But that's the new thing to be scared of. Murder Hornet. Insert ominous music here. Doo-doo-dee. Okay, pardon me. Data from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is showing ridges with freshly exposed bedrock on the surface, which suggests that the moon, far from being a dead world, is in fact tectonically active, and that it is still evolving, and there's a dynamic system there. All right, we have to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with the last segment of this hour. Following that, we'll take phone calls. We'll be right back.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Did you know that you can be tracked and traced when you're online? With identity theft and cybercrimes on the rise, your passwords, your identity, and even your physical location can be revealed to complete strangers. Would you like to surf the internet anonymously and not have to worry about these threats? Well, now you can by visiting patriotinternet.com. For about $2 per month, patriotinternet.com will conceal your IP address and your physical location, allowing you to browse the web, send emails, and instant message anonymously. patriotinternet.com will bypass filters, block sites, and keyword blocking. You can also bypass logging by your router and your ISP. With patriotinternet.com, there is no software to install and uses 128-bit encryption for your protection. When using wireless hotspots, patriotinternet.com shields your information from identity thieves and is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux. Protect your identity and your freedom with anonymous internet access from patriotinternet.com. Visit patriotinternet.com today.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new EaseOff Model EZ4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The EaseOff lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the EaseOff? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my EaseOff?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry because we are offering $200 off on the new EZ4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows too. EaseOff LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to finish out this hour with a couple of science stories. You're probably already aware I'm a bit of a science buff here. And this next story touches into something I've talked about before about species chauvinism, where we're always talking about life on other worlds in terms of life as it exists here. And my position is that life can evolve in many forms, and it doesn't have to have necessarily oxygen and water, could be any fluid medium like methane under cold temperatures, as long as you have a fluid medium, the basic building blocks of life, and an energy source to drive it all. Sooner or later, something that self-replicates will show up. And so this article here in the Daily Mail is revealing that scientists have discovered there are some organisms, earthly organisms, that can survive in an atmosphere of pure hydrogen. No oxygen, no nitrogen, no nothing, just pure hydrogen, and yet their metabolisms continue. And that is a major demonstration that we should be looking for life in environments that are not the golden zone. That if we're interested in finding life as we know it, yeah, okay, but we're limiting ourselves. I think we're going to find life in all kinds of environments that would be extremely hostile to humans. Even the extremophiles on our own world live in environments that would be extremely hostile, indeed lethal to humans, like the deep crust microbes, for example, the fish that swim in the Arctic oceans. You know, we can't do that without special suits or submarines. If I were in charge of NASA, and putting aside the joke about dressing up like apes, I would be thinking about sending back to Titan and see if anything is swimming around in those methane pools. That would be a truly extraterrestrial life form, and that would prove we're not alone in this universe. I would really, really like to see this. Okay, now you've probably heard of the Tunguska event. Basically, blew down a huge amount of forest in a very remote area of Siberia. And it's always been a mystery because people say, where's the crater? And there have been all these theories about how this object disintegrated in the upper atmosphere and created a shock wave that did all the damage. But the latest theory that's come on out is that it was an iron asteroid that actually skipped off the atmosphere, came in at a shallow angle, hit the atmosphere, created shock waves that caused all the damage below, and then flung back out into space again. Which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. And finally, a remarkably well-preserved wreck of a 2,000-year-old ancient Roman sewn ship was unearthed in Croatia. Now, what they mean by a sewn ship is putting the hull together with wooden pegs and cords. And what's really interesting is this is how the Maori built their canoes. And I know because I got to help build a Maori canoe when I lived in Hawaii. Okay, there's the music. It's time for station identification. We'll be taking phone calls after we come back from these few words.
Talk Right, the conservative app offered by TalkStream Live that caters exclusively to the conservative talk radio community. Here you'll see only talk shows and podcasts from the conservative right, all the big broadcast names and online digital shows in one place. Talk Right makes it easy to find all your favorite conservative talkers with all the upscale features you come to expect from TalkStream Live. Keep up with the fast-paced political world. Download Talk Right today from Google Play or the App Store.
The Republic Broadcasting Network late night premiere show of Red Pill Hardcore is hosted by activists that want to hear from you, the listeners. So that you can get involved in the activism, please call in at 800-313-9443 at 10 p.m. to enter the discussion. To book yourself as a guest, call our studio at 202-657-5715 or contact RBN staff. Remember, keep it real and take the Red Pill.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And welcome back to our show here, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we're going to take a phone call from Jeremy in Kentucky. Hello, Jeremy. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mark, thanks for taking my call. I'm out in the middle of the sticks. Hopefully I have good reception. But you mentioned the and nuclear weapons and them being our supposed ally. We also have another little ally in the Middle East, and that's Israel. But the truth is, both of these countries have attacked us. We all know the USS Liberty, the Jonathan Pollard spy case, and the Levant affair. And then our own government, our own Congress admits that Saudi Arabia financed 9/11. Now, that's all they admit to, but that's enough. So, with allies like that, who needs enemies? But I just wanted to point out that hypocrisy, that I guess it's because we're all tied to the petrodollar. But, and everybody's beating the drum with a war with Iran. Sean Hannity always talking about Iran as the greatest terrorist. They've never attacked us. Everybody wanted to oust Syrian government. But, and they tried to do the gas baby false flag. It never was proven. But yet, here we have Saudi Arabia committing open genocide to the Yemenis. And yet that's all overlooked. I just, you know this, but I'm sure a lot of the listeners know, but just want to throw out some good talking points there for all these pro-war neocons who disguise it as American patriotism. And I'm really enjoying your show, by the way. I just started listening in the last couple of weeks.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. By the way, former red state, current blue state, and really in agony over that. I know, like, we do the red and blue thing. I've heard a lot of people do that when they call in. But
Yes.
hey, aren't we all just red, white, and blue at the end of the day?
That's well put. I like that.
Hey, I enjoy your show, and I help out Patrick Slattery every now and then on National Bugle on Wednesdays. So I really enjoy RBN and the free speech. And everybody go there and donate. Click on the donate button because we got to keep this going, especially with Corona hoax 2020.
I appreciate that. I really do.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm gonna get off here and get back to work. I'm listening on my earpods, so let all the old guys out there know that I didn't quit working to call in. I'm still working. I just got you on Bluetooth.
Yes, he's still working, and whatever he's paid, it's not enough. All right. Well, listen, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. The phone lines are open. Apparently, there's a new mutant strain of the coronavirus. It's becoming the virus dominant form, and it's even more contagious than earlier versions. This is coming from Los Alamos National Laboratory. Now, interestingly enough, the normal course for a pathogen's evolution is to more benign, non-lethal forms. Now, maybe this is more contagious but less damaging. The idea behind any pathogen is they want to reproduce. Well, it's not even a case of wanting. I mean, we're talking about very simple molecules here that are not sentient. But the goal is to reproduce and to move forward with their little self-replicating chemistry. And if they kill the hosts, opportunities for that moving forward stop. And that's why measles, when it first appeared, was extremely deadly, but now it's just a childhood annoyance. So we'll see what's going to happen there with this new mutant strain. And that's always been the problem with any of these pathogens is they mutate, they change. And I've heard all kinds of different numbers as to how many variations of COVID-19 there are out there. They run from 8 to something like over 30. So Cuomo is out there pleading for a debate on reopening America as the coronavirus model doubles deaths. That's another big problem that we have here. Everybody is going from the models. They're not actually out there counting people who are sick, who are dying. They're running these models and then treating the results of the models as reality. And maybe that's the reason why the CDC had to recently revise downward the number of deaths at their website, is they revised the model. Cuomo's out there saying, how much is a human life worth? And we're back to this debate between human lives and dollar signs. So anyway, all right, so let's talk about the so-called plandemic. At this point, it's pretty obvious that the COVID-19 crisis has been overhyped. And everybody was using it for their particular agenda. Corporate media was using it to build audience. They were sensationalizing it. And to be very, very honest, without wanting to trivialize those who got sick and those who died, I think we're seeing a huge, huge overreaction. You know, the shelter in place, the face masks, the 6-foot separation. It's really hard to tell, and complicating it is the fact that we don't have sources of information that we consider to be reliable. In fact, somebody wrote in an email saying conspiracy theorists are merely those people who refuse to believe proven liars. I think is a really good definition of the term here. My wife and I were down at our bank earlier today. They're still going only through the ATMs and the drive-up teller window. And we said, when are you going to open the lobby? And said, oh, well, we got to get all the plastic in and we've got to get the shields up. And so our society has changed from this, and I'm not sure it's for the better. If anything, we're going to see a greater sense of personal isolation, and that's not healthy. Definitely not healthy at all. Okay, getting on back to the issue of all these wars that we're talking about, and you know, Jeremy was talking about. First of all, nobody's ever proven that Saudi Arabia had anything to do with 9/11. It was just a convenient person to blame here. As far as Israel's nuclear arsenal is concerned, officially to the U.S. government, it may or may not exist. That's the position that the United States and Israel take, is maybe we do, maybe we don't, but don't mess with us. But we know that Israel is a nuclear armed state. They refused to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They refused to allow inspections ever since the one that they allowed at Dimona, where they basically blocked off the nuclear weapons lab with a fake wall. So as far as Saudi Arabia, they want to share nuclear power with the United States. And I think we all ought to be concerned because right now the United States is pushing for what they call the low-yield tactical nuclear weapons, such as sub-launched. And I'm in agreement with the Russian authorities that having the availability of these low-yield nuclear weapons makes the possibility of a nuclear exchange more likely. You know, it's the idea is, well, this isn't one of the big city busters here. It's just a little tiny nuclear, you know, pop gun. So we'll go ahead and use it. So you have these limited nuclear exchanges with these small nuclear weapons. And then when you run out of the small nuclear weapons, well, you tend to reach for the bigger bang. So I don't know about you, but right now I'm very concerned about how in the midst of the economic decline, this new depression, in the midst of the pandemic, that we see so many people inside our government who are still out there saying, we've got to have a war with China. We've got to make China pay. We've got to have war with Iran. We've got to make Iran pay. We've got to have war with Russia. We've got to make Russia pay. Pay for what? For being China? For being Iran? For being Russia? Those aren't crimes. Those are other countries with their own rules, their own laws, and their own belief structures. And we should be leaving them alone. And all you need to do is take a look around at who is operating in whose backyard to know who the aggressor is. The United States is the aggressor. They've gone into Afghanistan, they've gone into Syria, they've gone into Iraq. We know who the aggressors are. Look in a mirror. All right, we're going to take a phone call from Joe in Houston. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, I just heard that guy from, I think, Kentucky just calling about Israel's attack on the Liberty and Pollard and all that, and also the Saudis' attack on 9/11. And I think those both were acts of war, and it's too bad we didn't punish them in some way or another. I don't say we have to nuke them or actually I mean, we give them enough money and military protection that we don't have to actually go to war to overthrow the people that were responsible. And I feel the same way about China. We should put pressure on them and force the people responsible. Now, the real issue, though, with Israel's attack on the Liberty and also the Saudis' attack on 9/11 is the people in the United States government, the treasonous bastards, we ought to call them, that were also involved in it. And those are the people that really need to be rooted out. I call them the neocon, deep state, Zionist, treasonous bastards, to make it short. I'm sure there's an acronym there, but and I think that there might be some of that also going on here with China and the bioweapon that was released. I think that there's a deep state involvement in that with possibly Bill Gates, possibly enemies of Trump. And so when I say that I think that what China did was an act of war, I think it was, as was the attack on the Liberty, as was the attack on 9/11. And they were both, all three of these attacks, it appears to me, were given aid and comfort by Americans. I mean, President Johnson knew about the attack on the Liberty, helped orchestrate it. President Bush and Dick Cheney knew about the attacks on 9/11. Now, I don't think Trump knew about this bioweapon with the Chinese, but I think there are parts of this deep state government that despises Trump, you know, the same ones that were starting to find out, like what they did to General Flynn and such, the CIA, the rogue elements of the CIA and the intelligence community. I think they might have had a lot of involvement in this because, as you pointed out recently, and others have, that this was a finance weapons research. You know, we were funding them. I mean, I think Dr. Fauci is in this up to his eyeballs. And I think that once again, these are acts of war against this country, and the people I really do, and you know, people have called in about me yesterday and saying, "What does he think? You know, we bombed Afghanistan." I was against the attacks in Afghanistan. I think people and our country should send the people responsible for doing these acts of war and these acts of terrorism against that. I think we should send George Bush over to Afghanistan and Iraq so he can stand trial. I'm not defending it. But the people dying of this coronavirus are innocent of that. And I think they deserve some kind of restitution. And, you know, so I'm not going to look the other way. I think I heard a lot of callers call in about what I said about the Chinese. And I just think that they're a little off base. It seems like because of some of the things this country's done in the past, which I don't support, that we deserved it, you know? That because of what we did in Afghanistan, we deserve a bioweapon attack by the Chinese. And then there's one caller from New Jersey who basically says we got to watch out for the Chinese because they're so big and strong. Well, so we're going to just take a bioweapon attack and just roll with it?
Yeah,
Say, okay.
Joe, the problem is you're approaching this as if this was a deliberate act on China's part. And right now, all of the intelligence agencies are concurring with my initial assessment was that it was a lab accident. Somebody dropped a test tube. Now, that's not a deliberate bioweapon attack. And this COVID-19, if it's supposed to be a bioweapon, it's a really lousy one because it's not killing all that many people. Most of the people who get the COVID-19 don't even get symptoms. How is this a biological weapon?
Well, I didn't say, look, first of all, what I have said repeatedly is it needs investigation. And if it turns out to be a bioweapon attack, that's what I've been saying. So you're right.
Yeah, but you're acting as if the investigation is over and it's already concluded.
No. I've been playing kind of a game of testing theories and talking about what we should do if it is a bioweapon. That's my point, is that if it was a bioweapon, what do we do? I'll ask you that. And I'd like, you know, when these callers come in to criticize me, why don't you ask them too? Like, okay, now what if it was a bioweapon? What should we do? Should we just forget about it because what we did in Iraq?
Well,
we just forget about it because China supplies Walmart? I mean,
Joe, let's go the other direction. What do we do if we find out it was simply a laboratory accident?
Well, then I think we should still try to get some form of restitution from the Chinese for not locking it down and allow. It's it's like Indians when we used to give them blankets with smallpox. I mean, letting all those people fly out. I think they should just open up the Chinese to lawsuits. Let's put it that way. Then it would be a matter of any victim should have the ability to take the Chinese government to court for negligence. And that's a financial price they'll have to pay. And I think that's fitting for if it was just a negligence on their part, then it should be kind of settled in the courts. But if it was a tactical release of a bioweapon, or it was more along the lines of, like what we did with the Indians, sending them, blankets that were infected with diseases, I think that's an act of war, and it has to be responded to. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be responded to with nuclear bombs or anything, but it can be quarantines or other things, other aspects of it. But I'm looking at it like, in my view, the Chinese are culpable in this, but at the same time, I do also want thorough investigations into any Americans that were involved in this bioweapon. That's another thing I've said all along, that I want to see the people responsible for shipping this virus to China or funding this virus in China. I want to see them strung up. Absolutely. But to say that this country, some of your callers seem to think because of what we did in Iraq or because of some of the rotten things this country has done that I've been against, that, innocent old people in nursing homes deserve this or shouldn't be entitled to some kind of retribution. I think that's wrong. And that's kind of what I wanted to say today.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the phone call.
And I read your war prayer.
Well, it's Mark Twain's war
It was
prayer.
very interesting.
Yes, it is.
No, but I mean, you recommended it. It wasn't very stirring. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I agree with Joe. Whoever and wherever this came from, and nothing is certain. We're being lied to by everybody. But there should be an investigation, whether it was accidental or purposeful. Whoever it was, be it American or Chinese or Israeli or Canadian or whoever, they should be run down, and this should never happen again. And we should never be in the position of allowing these people to drop a test tube and get something on your shoe and shutting down half the world, or worse, do it intentionally. But Mike, to add on to some of the things that Joe said, and add to some of the things your previous caller said, there's the Roger Stone thing, that there were some papers that were made available, and that the Israelis were helping Trump out in 2016. It's absolutely, they come right out and say, you need our help to get elected. And, that's what they're saying in the documents. And of course, nobody's talking about it. After 4 years of Russiagate, nobody's talking about this. And of course, that goes on all the time. They own our government. And speaking of that, the nuclear weapons that they say, oh, maybe we do and maybe we don't. Well, you know what? Here's something they did do. They stole weapons-grade uranium from NUMEC in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
They stole enough to make, and if anybody else had done that, they would be a parking lot paved in glass. And they've done that. They interfere in our elections and our electoral process. Listen, look who we've been arrayed against. Iran. We've been arrayed against Libya, Syria. They don't like the Ukraine and Russia. We've been arrayed against them. They can't control China. They're bankers that control everything, including the media, which is just a spokesperson for the banks. But their bankers can't control China. They know they don't have a fifth column, that they can do what they've done here and in England. And that when the dollar goes down against the yuan, they can't recover. That'll be it. They know they can't out-manufacture them, so they're losing total control. Not only is it the American
Peter, I'm going to put you on hold. I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words.
What would you say if I told you we have a new tool that will increase production and lower maintenance costs for your meat processing company? And it would pay for itself in just 6 weeks.
When pigs fly!
The new Ease Off Model Easy 4 replaces old spring-style carcass droppers and is faster, safer, and more reliable. The Ease Off lowers or lifts 1,000 pounds to or from your rail automatically using our remote control.
Sounds expensive. Can I afford it?
Can you afford not to try the Ease Off? It installs fast with just 3 bolts in place of your current dropper. The effortless operation will reduce fatigue and injuries, speed up your line, eliminate downtime, and increase profit.
How can I order my Ease Off?
Go to easeoff.com, EAZEOFF.com, and hurry because we are offering $200 off on the new Easy 4 for a limited time. Easeoff.com. We make pigs fly. Cows too. Ease Off LLC, Summersville, Missouri, 417-932-6419.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what really happened?
Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Peter in Los Angeles. And Peter, if you would pick up where I interrupted you.
Well, it's not only the demise and the end of the American empire, but it's the end also of the Zionist controllers that control our empire, the bankers, because with the loss of the dollar hegemony, with the loss of the petrodollar, the reserve currency, and our manufacturing primacy, our military primacy, the neocons who are running our foreign policy, the Zionist expression that have been running our foreign policy since the 80s, anyways, and the bankers, we're already tacitly at war, Mike. Joe was saying there's different gradations of war. There's sanctions. Well, we're sanctioning everything we can on China now. If we did any more, we'd cripple our own economy because we still need them for a lot. They manufacture 85% of everything. But we're opposing them everything. We're doing, all these provocative naval maneuvers and sanctioning them and all the covert war that's going on that we don't know about. So we're already at war, and we've already been directed in that war because there's no real reason for it by the same people who've been directing us against Iran and Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and Yemen and everywhere else. And they are desperate, Mike, because they're losing it too. Once we go down, they do not have a fifth column like they do in Western Europe. The Han Chinese, there aren't any Jewish Han Chinese that I know about. They can't take control of the political system and buy the corrupt people there. It won't work. So they're hurting that way, and so their desperation is grafted onto our own, and it's a really dangerous situation.
Yes, it is.
So,
I agree.
Anyways, that's all I had to say, Mike. And Brian Dawson is back on. I saw this morning.
Oh, good.
You can
I'm
get
glad.
on the ANC report. So he recovered somehow. I'm glad of that. But let me point out one more thing. And you're
Yes.
not even allowed to talk about this in 28 states because they have so much power. You know, you can criticize bankers, but you can't criticize Jewish bankers. You can't criticize anything that would absolutely, cast a shadow on them at all in 28 states. They have that much power that our own state legislatures and federal legislatures are voting against our own First Amendment and Bill of Rights in order to protect this fifth column. That's how much they're in control of us. More to come, too. But that's it for me, Mike. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the phone call, Peter. We're going to switch over to Bobby in Florida. Hello, Bobby. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with Peter. There's a nice little video out there. I think you're even in this video. It's called Dancing Israelis. I'm not sure if any of your callers know about that, but that shows you pretty much all that in a nutshell. Very good video, and I'm surprised it's still there. Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, I can hear you. You're on the air. The Dancing Israelis, of course, is one of the indicators that 9/11 involved more than Saudi Arabia and the U.S. government because of the way these Israelis were witnessed celebrating as the World Trade Towers came crashing down.
Exactly. I saw that video 6 years ago. It totally changed my whole life. I'm no longer a Christian. I'm sorry. I just don't believe in any kind of Semitic book, a death cult. I don't care. It really was a powerful video. And the video that you made, the All Wars Are Banker Wars, I'd say those two videos were so powerful. And to try to share them with people, it's, people just don't open up. I mean, I could show my neighbors a building 7 falling, and they say, oh, that's from the vibration of the, it's just people, the cognitive dissonance thing is really, and kids, young kids, you can ask them, you know what a Zionist is? No, what's that? You have to educate them. They don't even know. It's hard to get through to people. I actually believe that the right wing, the Republican Party is controlled by the Zionists. The Democratic Party is controlled by the Bolsheviks. It's the same two groups that went into Russia 100 years ago. I have not much more to say. I mean, they control our government to that extent, and we can't even see through it. I see through it. And I see right through it. I mean, the history's there. You just follow the money. I tell everybody, follow the money. So, I'm living here in Florida, and I'm still seeing people with masks everywhere. I'm starting to worry. I see a young girl today. She was like 18, working in a little dollar store. I said, why are you wearing that? You still wearing that? Oh, yeah, I still wear it. Do you have to? No, I just wear it. I go, the odds of you getting it, I'm a little worried about this. People are still, I like to see people taking these masks off because the longer they keep them on, I think the longer they're going to push this stuff on it. That's all I got to say, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot. Thanks an awful lot for the phone call here. We're coming up on another commercial break. We've got more callers waiting on the line. So I'm not going to go to a phone call just now because we are mere seconds away from our bump music. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN @hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
Welcome back to our show now. We're going to go back to the phones here to Patrick in the United Kingdom. Hello, Patrick. What's on your mind today?
Yes, hello, Mike. Hi again. I hope you and Claire are doing well now in Indiana, in the, I don't know what they call that, the Midwest, or the beginning of the Midwest, or the Gateway State.
Yeah.
Just want to talk to you about the Federal Reserve. Interesting, because I listened to a number of the alternative stuff, and Dave over at the X22 report, he's adamant that Donald Trump, now with all the tweeting and all the instructions and orders, he's actually managed to, in effect, nationalize the Federal Reserve. He argues that the Jerome Powell now reports to the Treasury Secretary, and the Treasury Secretary obviously reports to him. So he's been ordering the Federal Reserve to keep on reducing the rate. So in effect, we know the Constitution is gold and silver, but in effect, if he's got control of the Federal Reserve now, that's the first time any American president has done that since Woodrow Wilson. And he can, in effect, order the Federal Reserve to create the money he needs in order to improve all the infrastructure and stuff, which is now I've heard what he actually wants to do now. He can actually order them to print it or create it electronically. And then, as you've said, spend the money, debt-free into circulation. And so that the money then can be used, circulate through the economy, so on and so forth, and rebuild much of the infrastructure, the stimulus that apparently he's done recently to the families, although not much, apparently isn't that debt free. So hasn't he actually achieved quite a good thing? He's actually got control of the Federal Reserve, and I just wondered if you thought that as well.
If it's actually happened, I think it's a very good thing. But then we had that story earlier in the day where the Treasury is borrowing $3 trillion from the Federal Reserve, presumably at interest. So I'd certainly like to see the Federal Reserve nationalized. I'd like to see them try and run like a regular bank rather than this legalized counterfeiting operation that they've been running for, over 100 years now. I keep hearing that Trump has nationalized the Federal Reserve. I'm waiting to see more indications of significant structural changes to the way our economy is handled.
When you hear of the media saying Trump, the Republicans are borrowing $3, isn't that really just the way of putting out the fact that they're not really paying interest in it and borrowing? Interest rates are zero anyway. The government, and this is the beauty of it, even if there was interest, it would be debt. It would be in effect debt-free, or even they're talking about negative interest rates if you take into account inflation and stuff like that. So now Donald Trump, he knows the system is fake. Isn't he grooming Judy Shelton to take the role of Jerome Powell eventually? And she's an advocate for the gold standard, apparently. So all this is cutting off all the banking families, and it's actually a good thing, although we might not be able to see it straight away now.
Well, boy, that's a hard one. I think that, first of all, I'm not sure that the interest paid by the U.S. government is effectively zero. There's a claim that the interest paid by the U.S. government to the Federal Reserve is paid back. But again, somehow or other, the Federal Reserve and its owners get richer and richer all the time. And they certainly have managed to continue to hold off any kind of an audit.
It's a bit like at the moment, the government is footing the bill over here on what they call furlough workers. But are they borrowing the money? Because our Bank of England is meant to have been nationalised, and we had what 100 years ago what was known as a Bradbury pound, where the Treasury Secretary actually signed all the banknotes himself and issued a debt-free. But back then, Bank of England was private, but now it was meant to have been nationalised in 1940. So in effect, we really are borrowing debt-free. We're really the Bank of England actually creating the money and then spending it into existence. And if that's true, that's a good thing. Well, anyway, Mike, that's all I've got to say. It's just really a query, and I suppose we just have to wait and see what pans out, in the future.
Okay. Well, thank you for the phone call.
Have a good evening. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Same to you, and we're going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Nothing's for free in Waterworld. There's nothing for free. How do they borrow money from the Federal Reserve for free? If they borrow money from Federal Reserve is a private entity. They're not getting nothing's for free. There's always like that line in the written agreement. I don't buy that. I listened to the X-22 report for a long time and USA Watchdog, and you know what killed me about the USA Watchdog, Mike, with Greg Hunter? When he went up against Catherine Austin Fitts when she mentioned Israel, he freaked out. Remember? I don't know if you ever saw that. He went crazy. Like, don't mention this, because the Palestinians were getting a raw deal. So I don't listen to any of these guys, but nothing's for free in the world. Okay. Yeah. There's always a price to pay. I don't believe that. And, we have a lot of debt in the country, and that's not including the unfunded liabilities. Us in Britain are in trouble. Hey, guy, the UK, you're in trouble, man. The cases are crazy over there with the deaths. Holy crap, Mike. I looked at the numbers. What's going on in the UK? Holy smoke, man. It's like worse than Italy. Like, what happened? Do they have like the bad strain? And Florida, the same thing. Mike, they've been open for what, about a week?
Yes.
About 25, 50, 75 deaths yesterday, right? It's going up. Why? because they unlocked the country. And Mike, I know you know about the Spanish. I don't know if you know a lot about the Spanish influenza. You do a lot of research. You're smart. You know, you ever heard of the Anti-Mask League?
Yes, I remember that. That was a big problem back there in 1918.
Kind of reminiscent about what's going on now. Like the people come out, they don't want to wear a mask, right? Well, you know, it's my right not to wear a mask, man. You know, like I have my rights not to wear a mask. Like that guy who goes called in Florida. Why is that girl still wearing a mask? Maybe she's the smart one, man. Like, you know.
Did you see the picture of the girl who had a mask with a hole cut in it to make breathing easier?
Where was that at? Holy.
Seriously.
You know, that's crazy. You know, Mike, yesterday it was kind of warm out in New Jersey. I wore my gas mask. My SG 150, I got a gas mask with the CBRN filter on it. And actually it was cooler than wearing an N100 fabric mask. I guess because it's not touching my face completely. It was actually a cooler wearing unit wearing a full face gas mask than just that fabric N100. You know, like because they get warm in it. I took my gloves off. I went to Lowe's. I took my gloves off when I got in my car. My hands were just soaking wet.
Yes.
That's crazy, right? I mean, imagine what the healthcare workers are going through in the hospitals. Holy crap. I mean, then they got to change them multiple times, I believe, right?
Well, they do multiple changes, but by the end of the shift, I mean, I've seen in the photos where they literally have ridges, pressed into their skin from the masks they're wearing.
And like I said, Mike, you and your wife, make sure Claire wears her mask properly, because I know you said she sometimes wears it under the nose, because I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that. That's not going to work. You got to have your wife, because this ain't over, Mike. You know that, right? Like I know they keep saying the second wave, but the second wave is the people who just are being locked. They're not wearing masks because they just don't want to bother with it. I mean, you've seen the pictures on the beaches, right?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's I think I looked at the Spanish flu thing. I think we're headed the same way, where it's a repeat. Well, what history don't repeat, it just rhymes.
Yes.
And I want people to just look at the Spanish flu with the Anti-Mask League and what happened with and there was actually, I didn't know this, but in the Spanish flu, there was actually parts of the country that were locked down. The whole country wasn't open. I think it was San Francisco that was locked down, right? And maybe some other areas of the country. It wasn't all a total blanket lockdown, but like Sweden, some people call in about herd immunity. Sweden didn't have that full herd immunity. They actually had a social distancing, asking people to, and in Sweden, it's basically voluntary, but I guess people are more inclined to go with what the government tells them, right? Over in Sweden, it wasn't like a full blanket. But Sweden's in trouble too, because I think the guy, I forgot his name, but he says basically what happened in Sweden with not being a full lockdown but doing slight herd immunity is probably what's going to happen in the West, where basically the numbers are going to even out between the countries that didn't lock down and the countries. Did you hear anything about like that?
Well, again, we're looking at countries like Sweden, which didn't really do a lockdown, and their numbers compared to Great Britain. There's obviously other factors at work there. And again, the governments can't actually compel you to wear a mask, but I think people are just on the precautionary principle. They're saying that this may be nothing, but it could be something. Therefore, I'm going to err on the side of caution.
Mike, isn't that an old saying we had? Better be safe than sorry, right?
Yes.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. We're going to switch over to Lenny in California. Hello, Lenny. Welcome back to the show. What's on your mind?
Thank you for having me back on your show, Mr. Rivera. I want to speak to your comment you made earlier in your show about the Democrats, bringing more attention to themselves by not wanting to get rid of Joe Biden for the obvious. And to me, this has been the plan all along. The Democrats, in a way, treat each other. If you ever watch the Star Wars movie, they treat each other the way the Sith Lords treat each other. You only get so far up before you get your hand whacked off, all right, with a lightsaber. Okay. But in the sense that what I'm talking about is that this has been the plan all along. They led Joe Biden to this point. He was never the top candidate. If you notice, at some point, everybody flipped at the same time, flipped against, what's his name, Bernie Sanders. They never gave Elizabeth Warren or your girl from Hawaii a chance. Never even gave them a look, okay? And got rid of anybody who could have been a formidable opponent. I'm not Republican or Democrat, but I'm just saying, as far as the way the Democrats work, this was all set up to obfuscate Hillary Clinton from any kind of scrutiny and just hand it to her on a silver platter. And I've been saying to anybody who will listen, when you look into that dark room and you see those pair of red eyes staring out at you from the darkness, that's Hillary Clinton. She's been waiting this long to pounce and and at the same time, they're trying to do the mail-in vote. They're trying to take this election right back from Trump, who won it fairly. Now, I know you want to keep it to one subject, but Peter triggered something. But to finish up with Joe Biden, they know everything about him. They know the guy. They don't call him Pedo Joe for nothing. All right, they know. Every time you turn on TV, you see him, sneaking up behind some woman or little girl, whispering in her ear. Hell, man, he was even caught on tape, kissing his granddaughter in the mouth. I mean, with his mouth open. Talk about grandpa with benefits, But the thing is, I want to say what Peter triggered something that I've been thinking all along. And what you have here, and let me say this, China, Israel may have opened up a port to you over there for you to do some trading or whatever. But let me say this, Israel is nobody's friend, okay? When the United States filed for reparations, so did Israel. So did other states in America, okay? And Australia did too. But here's the thing. I think Peter stumbled on something where, it's not a stumble in his case, but I've been thinking about it. And what we have here is two banking systems. There's going to be a new world order. They just don't want China running it, because in the West, when you screw the people over, okay, and you take their money, you get even more money, okay, and you screw the people over some more. In China, when a banker screws up, you get a bullet to the back of the head. They don't want the Chinese bankers coming up and running that kind of system throughout the world, because the Zionist bankers there will be nothing else left for them to do. So that's all I want to say, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Keith Rogers. Hello, Keith. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I got two things for you, Mike. I haven't cut the video yet, but there's a video from the UK over there where one of those top head nurses over there says we haven't infected enough people yet. However, the CARES Act, if you go over to High Impact Vlogs right now, there's a video entitled, I Got This Way Wrong, Guys. Please read the pinned comment. And it's a documented video of how the CARES Act was introduced by Joe Courtney, Democrat of Connecticut there. It was introduced on 1/24 of 2019, over a year and 2 months before this coronavirus BS. And he goes on with all the documentation from all the White House websites, the links to WHO, which they're trying to demonize now, is linked to China. This is the same CIA tactics they always do, But it would behoove Mike there in the control room to download that video and also put it up on the RBN server there. But anyway,
actually, they already have.
This here has all been, This pandemic thing, it was done long time ago, just like the financial collapse. We all knew it was coming with QE1, QE2, QE3. Now we got QE4. And it goes on with that Rockefeller document there about the total totalitarian rule. And this is just like 9/11 when they rolled out more of the police state and the spying and stuff like that. So to me, it's Title 18 subversion. So in November, if you want to vote your conscience, because you're voting for a one-party system. They're all in on it. You got a break coming up, so.
Yes, I do in about 30 seconds. Anything else?
Yeah, but I would look at the video there because it's all documented. Right below it, there's all the links to it and everything like that, of all the White House websites, everything.
Well, as Mike in the control room just informed me, they've posted that video at the RBN website, republicbroadcasting.org. Okay, well, Keith,
Okay,
thank
good.
you
Yeah.
very much. We're going to let you go here. We got about
All right,
15.
my best to you, Mike.
All right, my best back to you. And we got about 10 seconds here till the next ad. I don't want to start a new phone call, but we do have another caller waiting on the line. So we're going to take a break for some commercials, and we'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Did you know that you can be tracked and traced when you're online? With identity theft and cybercrimes on the rise, your passwords, your identity, and even your physical location can be revealed to complete strangers. Would you like to surf the internet anonymously and not have to worry about these threats? Well, now you can by visiting patriotinternet.com. For about $2 per month, patriotinternet.com will conceal your IP address and your physical location, allowing you to browse the web, send emails, and instant message anonymously. patriotinternet.com will bypass filters, block sites, and keyword blocking. You can also bypass logging by your router and your ISP. With patriotinternet.com, there is no software to install and uses 128-bit encryption for your protection. When using wireless hotspots, patriotinternet.com shields your information from identity thieves and is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux. Protect your identity and your freedom with anonymous internet access from patriotinternet.com. Visit patriotinternet.com today.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The Republic Broadcasting Network late night premiere show of Red Pill Hardcore is hosted by activists that want to hear from you, the listeners. So that you can get involved in the activism, please call in at 800-313-9443 at 10 p.m. to enter the discussion. To book yourself as a guest, call our studio at 202-657-5715 or contact RBN staff. Remember, keep it real and take the red pill.
Is the Second Amendment your line in the sand? Is the United States Constitution important to you? Are you worried about gun confiscation? You need to join us for free at gunconfiscation.com. At gunconfiscation.com, you will meet like-minded patriots, get the latest Second Amendment news, and find anything you need to prepare for gun confiscation. Visit gunconfiscation.com today. That's gunconfiscation.com. Which side are you on?
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what really happened?
Welcome back to our program here. We're going to go back to the phones to Pat in Fort Worth. Hello, Pat. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, thank you. A caller called and said, even the blue states, they got about 40% people in there that think red, more conservatively. And so people need to call all of their reps, including the others, the blue ones, and tell them that what Rep Jordan said, and that is not fair, that physically responsible states they should not be paying bankrupt states off because of this corona thing. I know people are, since they're home, Nancy Pelosi's not able to put all that stuff in. People are reading it, and I bet you they're going to read this new one too. There's no telling what's in that. You know how she is. You have to pass it to know. That's not fair. That has nothing to do with corona. They were probably bankrupt anyway. See, New York, California. Not
Well, I
right.
remember there were some people out there saying, we're not going to bail out badly managed states, but then most of them are. The money is flowing, and everybody wants their share of it.
Well, I know all that, but the point is, though, that what they want to do is make the country so bad off that they get the Senate also. So that what that means is if the Republican reps don't get on Nancy Pelosi for doing that, then you could lose the whole shebang. Because right now the House spends some money, but the Senate stops them. They waste the money, but the Senate
all revenue measures are supposed to begin in the House anyway. That's in the Constitution.
Right. That's
and
right.
The Senate gets to say yes or no.
If we lose the Senate, we'll never come out of it because they're nuts. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much there. Okay. We're coming up here to the end of the show. And it looks like the new format's working out. I'm getting a lot of emails saying that they like this whole situation of news in hour one, phone calls in hour two. And so we're going to keep on doing that for a while until something better suggests itself. Getting on back to our current political situation, I think something that really bothers me is the childishness that I'm seeing among so many of our so-called politicians. And I keep asking myself all the time, is this really the best that we can do in terms of a Nancy Pelosi or a Chuck Schumer or an Adam Schiff or a Donald Trump for that matter? And I agree with that other caller. There's going to be a last-minute substitution for Joe Biden, who is too far gone and too scandalized to win in November. The big question is, who are they going to try and foist on us instead? And I am concerned that it will, in fact, be Hillary Clinton. And I'm absolutely opposed to that particular human being occupying the White House. So we'll see what happens between now and the convention. But they're definitely out there floating the trial balloons to see if people would go along with a Hillary candidacy. And there was that other suggestion of Hillary as the candidate and Barack Obama as the vice president, which could prompt, theoretically, a constitutional crisis. Okay, so we're getting closer to the end here. And again, looking at all those videos of Biden inappropriately touching girls, how can we even consider this man in the White House? All right, there's the music. Time for us to get on out of here. Please stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need your help to keep doing what we're doing right now. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.